And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to be taking a look at a genre that I am not really that familiar with. But let's give it a shot. We're taking a look at a solo war game, and that's Field Commander Alexander. This is a game which you can just sit down and play by yourself. Not usually something that I like to do because I'm usually more of a social type of gamer. But anyhow, this one, it's kind of a chit and counter war game. About 90 minutes to play per campaign that you play, and you can actually keep track of how you're doing throughout your lifetime of gaming in this case. So why don't we take a look at how this game plays, what the experience is like, and my thoughts on it after we finish all of that. So here you see the map for Field Commander Alexander all set up for the first of the campaign missions. And there's a lot of information on this board, but it's a relatively easy system. And it's going to be outlined by these little charts that are on the board. So the setup's all listed there. And if we take a closer look at the setup, we can see that it tells you where on the battlefield you're going to set up your parts, what forces you're going to start with. So your battlefield starts with the heavy cavalry, phalanx, and infantry, archer, and Alexander at level 1. You're going to start with 10 gold, and Alexander's army is going to start in Macedon. So above that, there's going to be a prophecy, or different prophecies placed throughout the board, which you can choose to complete or not, and that the operation area on the board is going to contain all of the operation counters, as well as one starting force for the enemies. Enemies are going to be placed around the board. It tells you the areas they're placed in and what goes there. And then it tells you at the bottom special campaign rules, which we can see here. It also provides several options that you can use. I didn't use any of these, but they're a little bit more varied rules or ways that you keep the campaigns fresh. And then there's the enemy operations area that I mentioned earlier. On the other side of the board, we have the sequence of play. So here you can see it tells you that you have a preparation phase. After that, you'll go through conquest, which is how you're going to be winning the game by scouting, moving around, and doing battle. And then you're going to resupply by gaining gold and then spending your golden glory. And it tells you how to operate the battle sequence. So, now that we've gone over the board, let's take a look at how the game plays. So, in the center of this board, I guess, one more thing to take a look at is how enemy orders work. And as I said at the beginning of the game, you're going to advance the turn counter first. Pretty straightforward, there's no point in going over that. But then, once you've done that, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to be allowed to refit. And forces, here, let's say I had this force on the board. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Alright, there we go. He has, this is what a force looks like. And their speed is going to be at the top, so he's a 2 speed. And this is his combat value, essentially. When they get injured, they're going to flip over. You'll see that the speed did not change, but that his combat value did. As he gets injured, he becomes less viable in combat. And refitting allows you to take these and to pay 2 gold per and flip them back over to the side wherever they happen to be. And so after you refit, the enemies are going to get to do their orders. And there are several areas on the board. You can actually see one here, Halicarnassus, which have strongholds at them. And these strongholds are going to get to do certain things. And in order to do these things, they're going to roll a die and you're going to find out what happens. So, essentially, you have your die and you're going to take it and you're going to roll it and you're going to see what the result is. So I rolled a 5. So 5, if I were just to take that, I would lose 2 gold or I would suffer 1 hit on my army. However, it also says to add the range from that stronghold to Alexander's army. And my army is a long ways away right now. It's all the way at the beginning of the board. So this is going to work out okay. A 5 plus there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces to where I'm starting. Or maybe 6. Doesn't matter. It's over 10. I do nothing. And I'm going to do this for all of the strongholds on the board. So I would do whatever those tell me to do, and then I'd move on to the next step. And the next step is enemy operations, and that's going to be back down to that operations section I showed you earlier. And there are tokens that go on here, and these operation tokens do different things. So there are going to be tokens, and these tokens are going to determine what the enemy does for the turn. And these tokens look like this on one side, again, focus issues, but if we take a look, they say operation on one side, and then if you flip them over, when you flip them over, something happens. So they're going to get 3 more forces. Or I may pay 6 gold to stop this from happening. But let's say I don't want to spend that gold. They're going to get 3 forces, and those 3 forces are going to go on the operations section for deployment at some time. And when there's a token that says go on it, let's say it's right here. When the go token flips over on one of the operations phase, all of those guys are going to get deployed, and they're going to get deployed wherever the campaign determines that they start. So, after that, we're going to go on to Conquest, and that's when you get to move around the board as Alexander. And so Alexander starts all the way at the top of the board up here. He's in Macedon. And he has a chance to move. And when he moves, he's going to do something kind of special. He's going to take this die. This is an interesting system. He's going to take the die. He's going to decide where he wants to move. And he's going to roll this die. And when he does so, he rolls a 1. So let's say he was moving down to fight this army. He's going to look at how many units are in his army currently. And he starts with 5 units in his army. So if he has 5 units in his army, he looks at this roll, and depending on what he rolls, he has to do one of 2 things. If he rolls higher than the number of forces he has, he's going to take hits. Well, that's certainly not the case here. I have 5 units and I rolled a 1. So since I rolled lower, in order to move, I'm going to have to pay the difference between however many units I have and whatever the number on this die is. So I'd have to pay 4 gold in order to move my units down. And I start the game with 10 gold, so I would pay that. This token here, it says 10 on it. I would find the 6 token and replace it in my treasury, and I would have less gold now. But I'd be able to move down. And then I would be able to have a combat with that army. And so I would have a bunch of units, and they would have a bunch of units, and we'd go into combat. And why don't I show you what that looks like? So here we have the battlefield, and this is just a portion of a player log sheet. If I zoom out a little bit, you can actually see more of the log sheet. But on this sheet is where you're going to be taking your battles. And basically, when you move into an area where there's a battle, you're going to take the units off of that area, and you're going to place it on your battlefield where your units always stay. And in this case, you can see we have 4 enemy units and we have my 5 units. And at the top, they all, as I mentioned earlier, have speeds. And so an archer, if I can get it to focus, is speed 5, and he has a battle value of 2. Heavy cavalry are speed 3, and they have kind of a special battle value. So they're speed 3, but their battle value is 3 superscript 3. And what that superscript means is that if I roll exactly a 3, they're going to do twice as much damage as usual, which is just 2 in this case. So what's going to happen first is that the enemies, in this case, get battle plans. And these are going to be random. You're going to draw them out of a cup or out of a bag. And they're usually something that's going to help the enemy. And so in this case, we can see we have cavalry get +1/+1 for the first turn. So they have a better chance of hitting, and they have a better chance of doing double damage. And there are all kinds of those. And after those are drawn, you actually get to choose your own battle plans. And usually, you get to choose one for each level of Alexander's level. And right now, Alexander's battle value is 1, so I would only get to choose one of these, but I actually get to go through and pick the right one. However, the area that I'm fighting in gives me a bonus that I can pick more. And so I would do that. And I'm basically going to try to counteract his as much as possible. So I'd regain a force if they got killed. Or there are some that raise your chances to hit, or some that reduce the ability of getting hit, whatever the case may be. And after that, all units are going to act in their speed value. So the first thing to attack would be this archer. And since his battle value is 2, he needs to roll a 2 or lower in order to hit. So he'd roll, and he got a 4. So he misses. That's not good. And then you would go to the next highest, and the heavy cavalry and the infantry for the opponent have the same. And it doesn't really matter which one goes first, so we roll. Let's say this is my heavy cavalry. He gets a 6, he misses. And then the infantry rolls, and he gets a 5, and he misses. And then we move on to the 2s, and the 2s roll, and a 6 is a miss, and then a 6 is a miss. And it can go on like this for quite some time until somebody hits, and then you have to allocate wounds. And let's say, you know, my phalanx there attacked, and it rolled a 3. Well, his battle value is a 4. He hit. I can assign damage to any one of these units. And what I would do to assign damage is merely flip it over, and it's going to make the unit either slower or harder to hit with, or both. And if a unit gets hit twice, it's dead. Now, the same is true for Alexander. If Alexander gets hit, he gets flipped over. And depending on what level Alexander you have, so I have the level 0 Alexander with a battle value of 1, if he gets hit, he flips over. And if he gets hit again, he's going to die. So The bigger Alexander you have, for every time he gets hit, he loses 2 levels, and then when he gets hit at the end, he's going to die. And that would end your game. So you don't want to do that, but if you win combat, you're going to take those guys, and they're going to award you both points in terms of money, and they're going to give you glory for killing them and for winning battles. So let's go back to the board and see how you win. So here we are back at the board, and after you've completed all of your battling, the turn marker would move down, and the further along you get in the game, the less victory points you're going to get for winning. And that's why this is kind of a campaign game. But in this scenario, the whole objective is to capture all of the key points and then get yourself to a final destination on the map. And key points are noted by several things. One, they will have battle markers on them. And these markers, you can see them here. This is a battle marker. And then there's also going to be strongholds, which are over here. So if we take a look at this, that's a stronghold right there. And what you're going to need to do is to capture all of these locations and then get yourself to the final spot on the map, which is Lycia. And the faster you do so, the more points you're going to get. And those are over on the turn track over here. So if we take a look, if you get there by this turn, you're going to get 25 points. And if you get there by the next turn, you're going to get 20, 15, and it keeps going down until it gets to negative points. And you really don't want to win at that point. But hey, you should still be playing for some reason. And you're going to do this through fighting battles, and you can actually take some prophecies and do all kinds of special things. And this one says, hey, if you by 3 turns from now have 15 gold, you're going to get extra glory. And glory will be able to be spent for certain bonuses throughout the game. Money can be spent to buy you more units, or to buy you certain benefits such as a temple or a city, or yeah, just to replenish your units. So you can level yourself up, you can level up Alexander, you can level up your units, you can buy more units, and generally just try and make yourself good enough to get to the end before you end up earning negative victory points for the game. So my experience with Field Commander Alexander was not the greatest. First, I had a hard time focusing on the game, and I think that's probably because of its solitaire aspect. Second, for a war game, the rules are laid out in a manner that I don't think are that easy to follow. It gives you all of the information, and it gives it in a way that you can read it and understand it, but it seems to be kind of jumbled in a manner that it doesn't make much sense to me. Now, I'm not a wargamer, and I can't say that I enjoyed this game. As a matter of fact, I think the combat system's a little straightforward. Roll a die. Did I get the right result? No. Roll again. Continue until combat's over, or you decide to retreat. And there's all kinds of little rules that I didn't go into, but for the most part, the feel of the game is simply just move through, accomplish the goal as fast as you can, and either get victory points or lose victory points or get nothing. And unless you're going to play like a campaign, I really don't think there's much point. Now, just because this isn't a game for me doesn't mean it's not a game for a wargamer or, you know, a light wargamer. This is a pretty easy game to learn. At least I think it would be if you were a wargamer. So, there may be a crowd that enjoys this, but it's not for me. So take my opinion with a grain of salt. If you're looking for a solo war game, I guess giving Field Commander Alexander is probably worth a try. Otherwise, not a title that I think sparks too much interest, at least not with me.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.
Yeah?